All right. Hi, everybody. This is Todd Fabus recording another FacilitiesNet.com podcast. And today, my guest is Angela Huang from Cisco Meraki. You can check out Cisco Meraki at meraki.cisco.com. That's MERAKI dot CISCO.com. Angela, thanks for joining me today.
Hey Todd, how are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm great. I'm great. So, I kind of, when we were talking in the lead up to this, it was a lot of it kind of centered around, I don't know what the new normal is per se, but kind of centering around employees coming back into their offices, back to their facilities, the challenges that are going around with that, how things are different. And it's kind of where some of the idea for this pod hatched from. So with that
Yep.
in mind, kind of one of the first things I wanted to toss your way to talk about or ask you about was kind of what revolving on the trends of this kind of
hmm
return to the office or hybrid situations. Like, what trends are you currently seeing around how employees are interacting with their facilities now that they're coming back in a variety of different roles?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the main takeaways that I have here is that the role of the facilities management team is becoming increasingly proactive because of all the data on the space and its occupants that they're able to track as people are coming back to the office. So as we know, return to office is a really big topic for a lot of people. The space seems to be optimized for that because while people are coming back, their working needs are evolving. So you can't just go back to the way that the spaces were built out before. So one of the top trends here is that there's a different headcount of people coming into the office. In general, across the board, there's a reduced number of people coming back into the office as compared to pre-pandemic days. As a stat at Meraki, during high traffic days, right now we're typically seeing about half the number of occupants, so about 500 people on high traffic days as compared to pre-pandemic numbers where we saw about 1,000 people before.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a pretty big difference. You can imagine this impacts a lot of things like food and bev, how you use public spaces, how you use smaller spaces. It really impacts a lot of decisions that these folks have to make.
Yeah, I feel like even our place has kind of returned in a hybrid role. We've been in that for a while. It's almost wild though, where some days it made me think when you said like you used to have 1,000 and now it's 500. Some days it's like everybody's working, but only a quarter of the people are in the office. Everyone else is working remote. It almost feels like it's empty sometimes. So it totally shifts how
Yeah,
things are going. Like, so with that, like,
yeah.
are you seeing any challenges centered around like productivity? Because it's kind of what I was getting at, where some days it's almost hard to remember that people aren't like that they're not like out on PTO. They're working. You're used to them being in like the office next to you, but they're remote that day when you're in. So like, are you seeing any challenges centered
Mhm.
on worker productivity in this hybrid work environment?
I think for sure, if no change had been done, it would be really poor for productivity. I think beforehand, a lot of offices were optimized for people to be 100% in the office. So there was a lot of location-based features, a lot of big gathering rooms where people were meant to gather and work together in. But I know facilities teams have been looking at data, including badge and entries, door open closes for floors or specific rooms, and occupancy data to see where people are actually spending their time. And they're getting a better, different understanding of how people are spending their time in this new environment. So, as an example, we have a customer who's a school out in Denmark, and their facilities team had a guess that in certain parts of their floor in the library, they weren't being used during certain hours. So they tested this through looking at door open close data and through extrapolating with carbon dioxide data as a proxy for where people were spending their time. And they were able to get information on where people were not spending their time so they could turn off lights and access to other spaces in certain parts of the floor to conserve energy. So I think through doing things like this, worker productivity has been able to be maintained because facilities teams are able to focus on where people are actually spending their time. So they're able to put all their efforts in those spaces.
Actually, so door open and close data. I've got to say it's the first time I've heard that in quite a while. Does that mean like you're looking at like you're analyzing what areas of a building are being like most heavily trafficked and least heavily trafficked, and like to your point of, hey, no need to turn the lights on in this area because this door only opened once all day.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple different things you can do with it. You could put door open close it sensors in a lobby. So you can understand if people are entering that floor at all. Or if you want to
Gotcha.
get more nuanced data, you can
Sure.
put it in a conference room. Even things like this gets more fun, but like beverage, like fridges, like beer
Oh yeah.
coolers, things like that.
Okay.
We have some of those in
Okay.
our office. But when you look at data historically at a high level across the floor, you're really getting a sense of exactly what spaces are people using. If you see a space where there's a lot of door open closes over a few hours of time, you might want to really optimize for that, put all your resources there versus other ones that are not being frequented. You might want to get rid of those spaces or consolidate it into something else.
Huh, yeah, that's pretty fascinating stuff. And you're right, like these are things you would, I would assume most facility, maybe I'm sure some facilities managers were looking at that, no question, pre-pandemic, but it's just become something that's like now like it's almost become like breeding. Like it's just this stuff that like even I feel like sometimes even the occupants are dialed into things like that, where
Mm-hmm.
pre-pandemic when everybody was forced remote, yeah, I'm sorry, during the pandemic when everyone was forced remote, like who was ever thinking of like, hey, let's look at our door open and close data and how can we, make some changes with that. It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
I think
So
the issue is that if you don't have access to that technology, you can't use it. You don't have access to it. But I think now with IoT being so much more accessible than it was before, and with the
yeah,
technology being really easy to use, it is inspiring people to have all these new ideas about how they want to apply it.
yeah, for sure. You don't want to like hire somebody to be watching every door in the building, right?
Yeah.
That would be a little
I mean,
counterproductive.
you could do that, but it's definitely not the most cost efficient way to go about things.
Right, yeah, for sure. Like, okay, so I know people listening aren't gonna be able to see me, but like so worker productivity, I'm holding up my left hand. Employee experiences, I'm holding up my right hand. Like how do you kind of connect those and like create an environment where employees are can do their best work?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here. So I think the second trend that we're kind of getting at is that hybrid working spaces are just table stakes. You just need to have them in most offices now. There was a LinkedIn study that was done this year, and it found that in the US, about 20% of people are now hybrid workers, which is a lot more than what it was in the past. I think it's doubled in recent
It
years, and
somehow
about
doesn't that almost still seem low though, crazily?
so I think the other side of this is that about 30% are remote only. So if you add
Okay,
that
okay,
together, about half of
okay.
people need some sort of remote video conferencing needs. So I think it's really table stakes now to offer
Sure.
really seamless working environments. I mean, it's great that we're giving flexibility to accommodate employees that live all over, but it introduces new space challenges, right? So I think something that facilities teams are looking at is getting more into the granular level of how many people are using rooms. So, for example, if you have a big conference room that's meant for 20 people and you see that there's only 2 people in there, it might give you the idea that, hey, we need more hybrid friendly work rooms where people are
Yeah.
able to take calls with smaller spaces.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm full hybrid now. I mean, it's crazy. That's why I wanted to ask you that about the employee experience because when you mentioned 20%, you said 20% are hybrid, 30% are full remote, but it almost seems like at some level people became when everyone like when majority of people were forced remote, it's almost like people became either like I want to be in the office or I want to be remote, where the hybrid
Yeah.
almost became like the happy medium. But yeah,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Why with 30%. So like, yeah, the employee experience I think became a lot more important because some people are gonna like grumble because they got to come into the office, where other people
Mhm.
just like getting into the office. And I get it. That's what they've known. That's what they've done forever. Perhaps they're more
Yeah.
productive that way. I mean, I said that. I got 2 dogs at home, so like sometimes I like to get out of the house sometimes.
I think now that people have experience working from home, you naturally expect them to become more divided, right? I think people have
Right.
a lot stronger opinions now they've been able to experience what working from home is like. So you have to be inclusive and just cater to different working preferences. Like you were saying, some people love being in the office, they want to be in every day. Some people have found that working from home is better suited for their schedule. So I think companies need to acknowledge this and make sure they're putting in resources to accommodate both sets of preferences now.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I mean, you kind of touched on this when we were talking about some of like the door opens and stuff, but like how can getting on like one system help simplify things for a facilities team?
Yeah, so facilities teams are so busy. Um, Leading up to this interview, I spoke with a few facilities managers in Meraki, and I was just like blown away by just really how much they do, how many systems they're on. Separately, one of our customers told us that their facilities teams can be on up to 7 systems at a time. They're looking at a desk with 2 large screens open where they're tracking everything going on, including physical security, camera systems, physical gate systems. And so they really need things to be as seamless as possible. As much as you can get things onto one system with one login, it really helps simplify things by directing your attention to where you want to go. So little plug for Meraki here. We do operate on a single pane of glass. All our products, including sensors, cameras, networking equipment, it's all under one Meraki login, which makes it super easy to access. You just have to log in once and you have everything, all your metrics and charts there. But yeah, I think across the board, there's really no need to have so many systems open now when you are able to consolidate more than ever before. It just really helps to reduce the mental load to help teams be more effective and more efficient with their time.
Yeah, I'll well, since you went there, I'll good time for me to plug the website again for people looking for a little bit more information or who want to reach out. It's meraki.cisco.com. I mentioned it earlier. I'll probably mention it at least once more as this is kind of winding down. So I'm very cognizant of your time. Once again, very appreciative of all of your time. Thanks for joining me again. Do you guys have, I mean, kind of one more thing that I had lingering out there that I was hoping we'd have time to ask, but I don't know. Perhaps I'm asking the wrong question, but do you guys do anything like with the building certification, like the value of that?
Yep.
Because I feel like that would be okay, good. So like, how do you go about like what's kind of the process there? Like because it's got to
Yeah.
just lend some authority to the occupants of a building if you can, a building owner can point to something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So this is actually a good segue into kind of the third trend here. So this is about producing a high quality working environment for people who are in the office, which has always been an important topic for facilities managers. But now more than ever, we have access to really well-researched guidance about what our spaces should look like to be optimized. And we also have the tools to measure them. So one metric in particular that's part of WELL actually is about air quality. So there was a recent paper done by the Harvard School of Public Health, and they found direct effects of CO2, so carbon dioxide, and particulate matter on cognitive function, where response time was significantly slowed for office workers who experience higher levels of CO2 or PM2.5. So I think in response to
Oh,
this, there's a couple things facilities managers can do. One is, like you were saying, they can tie this into part of a broader initiative to obtain certificates that have guidelines around things like air quality. So one is the Building Certificate. This was created in 2013 to support the
mhm,
health and well-being of
yep.
buildings for its occupants. And it has 10 categories, including air quality, water, light, and food. So Cisco already has WELL certification done in a few offices and is currently getting more certified, especially in offices where we really want people to collaborate and see them as collaboration hubs. I think the benefit of doing something like WELL is that you're number one, you're primarily improving the air quality of the space. So people are more productive, they're more awake, but it also improves company attractiveness, right, for potential candidates. And you're also giving yourself something to draw people back to work in the office by giving them a sense of security.
Sure.
I think that the second quick thing here outside of the building certificates is that when facilities managers monitor air quality in a space, they can capture live data and react more quickly. So if you're saying, for example, that there's PM 2.5 levels in a space that are at an unhealthy level, with live alerting, you can know to go immediately to that space, do something to improve the ventilation, and it just helps you send the right people there more quickly to fix the problem at hand.
So do people complain? This is a joke, by the way. It's more of a joke, but like, do people complain that the HVAC's too hot or too cold where you are?
People can. I think we're lucky to be in California. We have a lot of open windows, great views of the water, but it also does expose us to the sun. So
We
people do complain.
we
Uh,
have that's always like the overwhelming number one complaint of facilities management. So I sometimes joke. I asked a lot of people that at the recently wrapped up NFMT show, and it was just kind of funny getting the responses. It's just like
yeah,
such a complaint, like you have all these million things going on in a building, and all these worries and concerns, and most occupants are just going to default to complaining that they're too hot or too cold.
yeah. I think it's hard to cater to everyone. Everyone's gonna have different
For
physical
sure,
needs. We're all
yeah.
different people, but I think the best you can do is just try to get data. You try to engage with people as quickly as you can, and you get good quality inputs from people, and then you just make the
Well,
decision
yeah,
based on
your
that.
comment on the CO2 and the air quality is one that it's come up in other conversations I've had, which I think that's like, to me, one of the leading candidates for talk about things I never once thought about entering any building, that I've ever gone into. If it was my own office or a sporting arena or a grocery store, you never thought about, like, what's the air quality in here? Like, how many times they pumping air in and out? And, and now here we are where it's this like, people are almost like listing it and like pointing to how like the standard that they're up to and they're achieving to hit.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
very,
I
very
think with the
fascinating.
pandemic, it brought this to light for a lot of people. I think we'd always known about air quality and its impact on health, but
Yeah,
with COVID being transmitted through the air, you just couldn't ignore it anymore. So
right.
after that, I think a lot of companies and employees just started caring about this a lot more and researching it, reading up on it. So that's why it's
Right.
just it's a hot thing right now.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because it is one of those things I think it bears mentioning and it appeals to a lot of people these days. But um, well, with that, I mean, I'm very cognizant of your time. I'm really, really appreciative for you joining me today. Again, my guest today here was Angela Huang from Cisco Meraki. She talked about lots of great stuff, answered all my questions. um, please check them out at meraki.cisco.com. I'll spell it once more here, meraki.cisco.com, and reach out. Hope everyone listening enjoyed it and got some good info from it that maybe you can apply to your own facilities. And Angela, again, thanks for your time. I don't want to keep you any longer. I'm sure you have other things to do. So thanks so much for hopping on and having a convo with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.